Kids Tours. Kids Tour. The Kids Tour is a 1-hour-long walking tour and is offered on Saturdays and Sundays at 9 a.m. Guests may arrive at 8:30 to sign in for this tour. Children of all ages are permitted on the Kids Tour. There is an age limit for all other tours offered by Big Cat Rescue. No children under 10 years of age are permitted, with the exception of the Kids Tour or Educational Department Tour. Kids Tour admission is $19 per child under 10 years of age and $29 per person for all others 10 years and older. Reservations are not required for the Kids Tour. The tour is geared towards a child's level of comprehension. The Kids Tour size should be limited to 20 guests or less. Kids Tour Guides. The Kids Tour may be guided by a red-level partner or keeper that has volunteered in the admin department for a minimum of 3 months, as well as upper-level partners or keepers. This tour requires a tour backup. Prior to the start of the Kids Tour, read the Important Updates section of the bigcat.me site or check with the coordinator prior to beginning the tour to see if there are any changes or special exceptions that would affect the tour. Often, there are several full tours for each scheduled tour time. Tour guests are given color-coded wristbands upon entering the property. Be sure to check with the gift shop staff to be assigned a color for your tour. Kids Tour Guest Arrival. The front gate is open 1/2 hour prior to the start of the tour at 8:30 a.m. Guests must sign release forms and pay for their tour before the Kids Tour begins. Always smile and be courteous, as you are representing Big Cat Rescue, and your customer service will leave a lasting impression on each and every guest. Keep watch for small children that are wandering around unescorted or are running in the parking lot near moving cars. After 20 guests have arrived and signed in, the gift shop staff will radio to the tour guide that the tour is ready and will indicate the color of the tour. The tour guide and the backup should meet the guests in the tour waiting area. Kids Tour Rules for Guests. Prior to the start of the tour, the Kids Tour Guide should go over the following rules with the guests. All tour guides are responsible for the safety of their guests and should request a tour backup if one is not assigned. All guests must stay together as a group with the Kids Tour Guide on the tour path side of the barricades throughout the tour. They must keep up with the tour and should not linger back. Barricades should be treated as if they go all the way up and that no part of their body or any of their belongings can cross over into the area between the barricade and the enclosure, including leaning over to take a photo. The barricades should not be touched. No horseplay, running, jumping, or yelling. Use inside voices and raise your hand if you have a question. Do not pet any of the animals walking around Big Cat Rescue. This includes the house cats, ducks, or peacocks because they can scratch and bite. Do not tease the animals or throw anything over barricades or into cages. Ask the adults to model and enforce the rules with the children. No smoking during the tour. Cell phones should be turned off or muted. Photographs are permitted to be taken during the tour. Kids Tour Rules for Tour Guides and Backups. The Kids Tour Guide should always check the Important Updates section of the bigcat.me site or with a coordinator prior to beginning the Kids Tour to see if there are any changes to the Kids Tour routine. The Kids Tour Guide and backup should be ready, clean, presentable, and report to the gift shop 1/2 hour prior to the start of the tour to assist with guest sign-in. The Kids Tour is a 1-hour tour. Monitor the children on the tour for signs of heat exhaustion. The Kids Tour narrative should be geared toward the comprehension level of a child. Graphic stories of animal abuse or rescues should be told in a manner that will not upset the child. Conclusion of the kids' tour. At the completion of the kids' tour, escort your guests back to the gift shop. Please be available to answer any additional questions the guests might have once they are back in the gift shop or parking lot. The kids' tour guide or backup will be needed to remain in the parking lot to let the guests out of the front gate. Private educational tours. Private educational tours. The Education Department organizes private tours for groups such as the Girl and Boy Scouts, as well as for birthday parties, school field trips, daycare, home school trips, and more. Reservations for these tours, private educational tours, are reserved through the Education Department and are scheduled Monday through Saturday. Groups can range in size from 10 to 60, including children and chaperones. Large groups will be broken up into several separate tour groups of 25 or fewer guests. Private educational tour parking. Greet each guest with a smile. Stop each bus or car as they enter so that you can direct them to where to park. Buses typically park in the grassy area of the parking lot or alongside the staff housing. Cars park in the normal parking lot. When you give each guest instruction on where to park, please also ask that they remain in their car or on the bus until someone can assist them with sign-in. Private educational tour release forms and payment. Make sure each guest has their release form. Every student and chaperone must have a Big Cat Rescue release form, and it must be completely filled out. There are no exceptions to this. Take a few extra release forms on clipboards to the bus or cars and have any teachers, bus driver, or adult that hasn't filled out a release form yet do so. If the driver is staying with the bus, let the gift shop staff know. The driver must still fill out the release form even if they are not going on the tour. Check each release form, make sure they are filled out completely and signed. Escort the chaperone that is paying for the tour into the gift shop for payment. The education director posts the tour pricing information on the gift shop calendar. Private educational tour rules. All of the kids' tour rules for guests, tour guides, and backups still apply. If the rules are not followed, the entire tour will have to come back to the bus. Ask the adult chaperones to model and enforce the rules with the children. Private educational tour chaperones. Take time before the tour to speak with the chaperones. Let them know that they are here to help supervise the children. If you do not have a tour backup, one adult chaperone per tour must be asked to volunteer to serve as a tour backup. The other chaperones should disperse themselves throughout the group. Like with any tour, if you do not have a backup and find you need one on the tour, radio your coordinator and ask for a backup for your group. Private educational tour restrooms. Before the tour, don't even mention restrooms if you can get away with it. Once one kid needs to go, then all of them do. Let the tour know that this will shorten the time available to be out seeing the cats. If during the tour a child asks to use the restroom, make sure to have a Big Cat Rescue volunteer escort them along with an adult from the tour group. You can call on the radio for assistance with escorting a child to the restroom so you and your backup can remain with the tour. Never allow yourself to be alone with a visiting child. Prior to the start of the private educational tour, direct guests to unload from the buses or cars and guide them to a shady area where they can be organized for the tour. If there are several tour backups, this can be done while the tour guide and the main chaperone are taking care of the payment for the tour inside. If the group is larger than 25, split the group in half. It helps to have the chaperones split them up. Conclusion of the private educational tour. At the completion of the private educational tour, escort your guests back to the parking lot. If time permits, send the children that brought money in small groups, 5 to 7, with a chaperone back into the gift shop to shop. A volunteer and a chaperone should stay in the parking lot with the remaining group. As soon as the kids make their purchases, send them back out to the parking lot. Try to get the chaperones to help with this process. Limit the time each group spends in the gift shop. Please be available to answer any additional questions the guest might have once they are back in the parking lot. The private educational tour guide or backup will be needed to remain in the parking lot to let the guests out of the front gate. Tips for both kids' tours and private educational tours. Please evaluate the age of your kids on the tour before you start out. This will tell you what you should and should not say. If the kids are over age 10, which is 5th grade, they can get a regular adult tour as they would be allowed on a regular tour and hear that content. If the kids are very little, 5 and 6, please be sure to use more sensitive language and/or skip some topics altogether. If the kids are 8 and 9, you may be able to explain some things to them a little more deeply without all the details that may be disturbing. Tour narrative. Talk about camouflage and the role it plays in an animal's life early on so that by the time you get to Zabu, they understand why she doesn't blend in. Avoid talking about death of the cats unless directly asked. Avoid the memory garden altogether. Be engaging and ask the kids lots of questions. What does nocturnal mean? What is a carnivore? What is camouflage? Ask the kids to raise their hand if they know the answer. If no one knows the answer or the answer given is incorrect, give the correct answer. Avoid graphic topics including canned hunting, stories of cats being physically abused, owners committing suicide, and the specifics of breeding or anything sexual. It is not necessary to mention legislative bills at all to younger kids. Older kids, 8 and 9, might have learned about how bills become law and understand it a bit, but don't spend much time on it, since they cannot sign a petition. Cover things that kids can do to help big cats. Don't pay to hold cubs. Don't go to the circus. Encourage friends and family members to do the same. Sponsor a BCR cat. Buy an acre of wild habitat and speak up about animal issues. The circus, for older kids. Usually talked about at Reno, this cat used to be in the circus. If you guys don't know, the circus is not a very good place for animals. Reno lived in a cage the size of his body with just enough room for him to stand up and sit down. He didn't have trees to climb or grass or a place to hide or any toys. He lived in that cage all day except for the time he was performing. When they are on the stage, the animals have to do things that are dangerous and scary for them, like jump through hoops of fire. Would you guys want to do that? Kids, no. Okay, well he doesn't either. So please don't go to the circus if you love animals, because when you pay to go to the circus, they use that money to keep using and training those animals. For younger kids, this is Reno. He used to be in the circus, which is not a nice place for animals. At the circus, they live in tiny cages just big enough for them to stand up and turn around in. They don't even have grass or trees to climb. Fur farms for all ages. Have any of you seen the movie 101 Dalmatians? Usually, most have. Do you remember what that mean lady was going to do with those puppies? That's right, she was going to make them into fur coats. Well, that's what was going to happen to this cat. We think the fur looks much better on him, don't you? Plus, they need their fur to stay warm and to stay hidden. It's their camouflage. People don't need to wear animal fur because they can wear jackets made of cloth. If the kids ask directly if the fur is shaved off or if the animal has to be killed, tell them the truth, but with no gory details. White tigers, for older kids. This is Zabu, and she is a white tiger. You might have heard some myths or stories about the white tiger. One is that this is a snow tiger or that it's a very rare species of tiger. Neither of these is true. This is actually a Bengal tiger, the kind that would live in the Indian jungle. You remember that we talked about camouflage before? Okay, well, does she have camouflage for the jungle? No, that's right. It doesn't snow there. So white tigers in the wild don't actually live to adulthood because they can't hide from their prey or from other animals that might want to fight them. They are not supposed to exist, but people think they are beautiful, so they took one white cub out of the wild in 1952, and all the others you see today are descended from that one cat. The only way to get the white coloring is to do something called inbreeding, which means that the tigers having cubs are all related to each other. They are in the same family. When you do that, you get cubs that are sick or have deformities in their faces. Show Kenny. They can only live in cages because they don't have any camouflage. So it's kind of a sad thing to keep making these cats that can only live in cages and have health problems all their lives. Zabu is pretty cute for a white tiger, but she was born without a top lip and has brown stripes. For younger kids, this is Zabu, and she is a white tiger. You might have heard some myths or stories about the white tiger. One is that this is a snow tiger or that it's a very rare species of tiger. Neither of those is true. This is actually a Bengal tiger, the kind that live in the Indian jungle. You remember that we talked about camouflage before? Okay. Well, does she have camouflage for the jungle? No. That's right. It doesn't snow there. So white tigers in the wild don't actually live to adulthood because they can't hide from their prey or from other animals that might want to fight them. They are not supposed to exist. Breeding, for older kids. Our cats don't have cubs here. They had surgeries to prevent them from being able to have cubs. That's called being fixed or spaying and neutering, just like your dog or cat at home. The reason why we don't have cubs here is because we don't think it's fair to breed them for life in a cage. They can never go back into the wild. They would have to be at big cat rescue for the rest of their lives. While it's very nice here, it can't compare to what they would have in the wild. For them, living in this cage is like you living in your closet at home with no computer, TV, books, or phone. Wouldn't that be pretty boring? Yes, that's exactly why we don't breed cubs here. For younger kids, our cats don't have cubs here. They had surgeries to prevent them from being able to have cubs. The reason why we don't have cubs here is because we don't think it's fair to breed them for life in a cage. They can never go back into the wild. They would have to be at big cat rescue for the rest of their lives. While it's very nice here, it can't compare to what they would have in the wild.